So I ran the numbers and calculated our accuracy. It turns out we were the most accurate when we worked together on all three of ours, actually. What's the best we got, you might say? Four.
Welcome back to the James and Dame Show. I'm Josiah,
And I'm Will.
and today we're going over the basically the post NFL draft grading system that we've kind of worked out. Um, Will and I have made our own grades per team, so that's really what we're doing today. We're just kind of breaking down what we think each team gets graded on and how well we really like their picks.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and
basically.
I would like to preface because it's arbitrary. None of this is gonna matter because it's all just our conjecture on how good we think these teams did and the value we thought they got. But at the end of the day, it's gonna be how do they play, and you really won't even know how good these guys are until 3 4 years down the road. So this really means nothing. But it's a fun way to kind of like recap it, look at it, and see kind of how we felt teams did and inevitably look back in a couple years and go, "Ooh, I got that wrong." But eh, it's fun,
Yeah.
so here we are. Um, I guess kicking it off here, just going down alphabetically. Starting with the Cardinals. This one pretty pretty easy for me. It's a C minus. Didn't address a lot of their needs or solve many of their issues. I mean, you did go out and get Jeremiah Love, which I love as a player, but you get him in like your deepest room. It is cap wise like it's the most expensive running back room in the league, and I would expect some moves there, but outside of that, average to below average picks down the board. I don't really love any of them besides Jeremiah Love, who brings on another question in itself.
Yeah, that's kind of where I placed mine. Kind of like that C average, really. Like you've already mentioned, Jeremiah Love, great pick. Not really what they needed, kind of, because great player, but that's not really what you're looking for in the draft right now. So that's kind of why I had him a little bit lower. I do agree. The picks are meh, like they're serviceable. Are they long term options? Probably not, unfortunately. So that's kind of where I placed them.
Yeah, they're just in on those Arch Manning sweepstakes. Moving on
Yeah,
to
pretty much.
Atlanta. I have them at a C. Uh, it's a smaller draft with no first round pick, no outstanding picks for them. Still plenty of holes. And mostly feels like depth picks. Nothing to inspire immediate playmakers. But I will say, I will give them props. It doesn't count towards their grade at all, but great narratively with Avion, the Terrell backfield, and then also staying in state with Zachariah Branch. So brownie points, I guess.
Yeah, I kind of agree with you. I actually liked it a little bit more than you did. I kind of had like C plus, barely scratching a B minus. They were it was all right. I mean, I did like the Terrell
Yeah.
combo.
Uh,
It's really exciting to see
outside
for
of
the
their
future. But
Yeah, I wasn't super outside of the Terrell pick. Wasn't super high on a lot of them.
yeah,
Um,
kind of like this Jeremiah Love situation, but different
yeah.
reason.
Looking at the Ravens, swear it's not biased. I have an A minus here. Nothing flashy, good selections in the early rounds, and fills a lot of holes, addresses a lot of needs. Still some holes around the O line, but I think they did a pretty good job addressing it. I think Ioane is going to be a great piece, but it's a lot of potential contributors on this team and a lot of starting potential through this draft. So I really like what they did.
There. I'd give them a solid mm, A minus. It was a pretty solid draft for them. You got a lot of picks really down the board. I mean, you have how many receivers in this one? You had two receivers, two tight ends, another running back, a couple guards actually. It's very impressive. They did get Rivers from Duke, so they did kind of get the depth a little bit for the Ravens, and that's what I really appreciated about this draft for the Ravens is that they managed to cover most of the things they were concerned about, which is good because you want to think long term option, and they did that. So I will give props to the Ravens.
I was a fan. I was a fan. Uh, on
Oh,
to
really?
on to Buffalo though. I have this at a C minus. I really was not impressed with this. I for for starters, they lost points with the constant moving back. It feels like they just didn't know what they wanted to do. They addressed some needs, but not in the way that it really inspired much confidence in the team. At least this year, um, didn't take guard until the seventh round after losing David Edwards, and yeah, most of the picks they made just yeah they could contribute, but it feels like subpar picks for big needs. So I was not a big fan of this draft for them.
I really hope that the Bills turn things around, unfortunately, because they have the talent, but they're just not doing it right. I kind of put the Bills at a C minus because I agree with what you really said. I mean, outside of the TJ Parker and maybe like one other pick, it was really underwhelming for the Bills. And I do agree with them moving back. I don't know why they did that. I don't know what they saw.
That's just the
I
Bills for
don't
you.
get it.
That's just the
Yeah,
way.
they've done it before. I mean, with Keon Coleman, I don't get it. I mean, they could have had Xavier Worthy, but they just moved on back, I guess. And that's what really bothers me is that they know what to look for. They just don't make a move for it. So, really disappointing on my end.
Yeah. Looking at the Panthers, I actually thought this was a pretty solid draft. I have them at a B minus, slightly above average. A lot of solid picks. Nothing too flashy. Addressing the trenches in their first two picks, finding a potential weapon in Brazil. A lot of things to build on this team around Bryce Young and hopefully give him a chance to prove himself this year as they're approaching that point. So I like building a team around him, giving it a chance to really get an idea of what you have there.
Fair. I actually had them graded a little bit higher. I kind of had them closer to a B plus, only because I like what the Panthers have been slowly managing to get over the years, and that they're not throwing everything under the bus for once. Obviously, getting Freeling, Hunter, Brazell, Lee the third, like, and even Sam Heck from Kansas State. Like, you're getting pretty solid players for the future. Sure, they're not like outstanding, but you can build off of the skill set that they already have, develop them into better players. Like, this is exciting. I don't think I've ever been excited for a Panthers team for a while. I'm really hoping that they do turn a new leaf and start becoming a better team overall because of this draft. It's a starter, but it's not the solution. So I like what they did.
It was very fair. Um, on to Chicago. I love their first two picks. I loved Dylan Thieneman getting Logan Jones when they had an absolute need at center. And again, Thieneman was a steal. uh strongly addressed needs, got really good players at those positions. Down the board, yeah, I mean you filled some depth pieces, built out that roster a little bit more, but I wish there was a little bit more addressed with the D line when you had so much concerns about pass rush. Maybe there's something else on in books for that, but that's kind of what knocked it down a little bit. Otherwise, I love kind of how they navigated the draft.
Hmm. I kind of have Chicago around a B range, so a little bit less than the Panthers. Mostly because I did like the Thieneman pick. Obviously, it's a big steal for what they got from there. And the fact that they got Logan Jones from Iowa. Any lineman from Iowa, you're set for life. These guys are built for the trenches. And then Xavier Thomas, get some good receiver depth there. A little bit less value down the board, but they're still good picks. I think overall they're just a slight nudge behind the Panthers, only because, I mean, yeah, what you basically said about the defensive line, they didn't really address it too much, but I think they have a vision for the future. We'll see. Ben Johnson, year two, we'll see.
Yeah, excited to see that. Looking at Cincinnati, it's another one of those teams that's kind of it's hard to gauge it because they didn't obviously have a first round pick. I gave them a B minus, and I tried to completely take not take into account the addition of Dexter Lawrence because that's kind of an outside factor. The draft they addressed a few defensive positions. Still getting some pretty solid day two value. Cassius Howell, who I mean, I think is a little higher than he needed to go, but considering he was a potential first rounder early in the draft process, um, but I mean, out really only finding depth day three
Hmm.
outside of uh Colby Young, which that it could be a very useful pick for them, but their day three picks leave a little to be desired for me. So eh,
Yeah. I think I also agree with you, but I think I have it a little bit lower. I think I had him more at like a C plus, maybe B minus. I mean, Bengals have been a little underwhelming. I mean, outside of Dexter Lawrence and everything. Um, I do like the Howell pick. I think getting a couple linemen, yes, a little bit down the board, but you can always, you know, get them up to speed, train them a bit. They did address a couple of the things that they needed, even in the off season. So I try to put them two separate. I think overall, if we were doing an off season grade, pretty solid B plus.
oh yeah,
Draft wise, a little bit less, just
yeah.
because of the picks.
Yeah,
So.
I would agree. I think off season compared to draft are two different things, and it's important to separate those. Um, Looking at the Browns, I see a lot of people have them graded really highly. I actually only had them at about a B, and for it was to me it was a really weird draft for the Browns. You had a lot of picks. A lot of picks does not mean a good draft though. Some of them were pretty questionable to me. Concepcion was not really a day one talent to me. I have just such major concerns with the catching problem in on a team that already has an issue with catching the ball. So that it kind of brings it down a little bit. I do like the Fano pick. Getting Boston though, still in towards the top of the second, is honestly who I think they should have gone for in the first place. But getting both really helps. So, but bonus points there. Plus picking up Emmanuel McNeil Warren, who probably should have gone higher, but you pick up some great talent, um, address some needs, but some other depth choices were head scratching to me. Like the likes of Taylor Green and the doubled up tight ends, doubled up tight like I mean yeah trenches, but it just some of the picks I wasn't super big on, but obviously they added some very solid pieces as well and some good players.
Yeah, I kind of have similar opinion. I like I agree. More picks does not mean a better draft. And I think people have a really hard time visualizing that. Outside of McNeil Warren, Boston, and Fano, it was a kind of underwhelming draft for them. Mostly because I don't trust Casey Concepcion, because with the brick hands, there's always been an issue with him. Boston is kind of a steal, regardless of the situation. So good on them. Getting a Toledo safety is always great. Fano just helping that line and everything. The issue is that like they're getting a lot of depth, but is the depth good for long term? And I think in 3 years, 2/3 of these guys are going to be either off the team or a free agent. So that's just how it is.
That's fair. Um, oh boy, here we go. Dallas.
Oh boy.
I know you're gonna, but honestly, I gave him an A. They smashed the Downs pick. It is like that pick alone is an A plus for me because hey, I have him so high, and them getting him at 11 on a team that desperately needed defense is such a great pick for them. Um, honestly, they started out as an A plus, and they slowly kind of drifted towards an A. Because I think they got I think Malachor Lawrence, great addition. I think they got a little too focused on edge because I think they needed to address the rest of the defense as well outside of just edge and downs. They got one other corner in Devin Moore. Um, at the time I did this, there was big question marks with Pickens. There still kind of is. So I would have liked to see maybe someone address the receiver thing. Right now we're in this weird spot where like he signed the tag, but then he didn't sign the tag, but now he has signed the tag, but there's still no plan for a long-term contract for them for Pickens, and that probably won't happen until next year. So really don't know what's going on there, and would have liked to see them potentially get a security option. But other than that, I do like the guys they brought in, and just could have filled it more. So still an A.
Yeah. I give him an A as well. I mean, you get Caleb Downs at 11, you're kind of set for most of the draft. I mean, yeah, I do agree. It was a little bit more underwhelming as they kept going. But overall, it's a pretty solid draft class and probably the top five, in my opinion, in their
Okay.
draft class. So I I liked what they did. I do agree they should have not focused on edge too much, but they did get the pieces. So
Three edges in the first four
it's a
rounds
lot.
is a little odd to me. But uh
It is.
other than that, I think they added some good talent. Looking at Denver, another team that didn't have a first round pick, I gave them a B minus. They got solid value for the picks they did have, but nothing that wows or moves the needle much. Just overall solid picks without a first or second round pick as they traded back. Um, so yeah, I mean you addressed it, but you're mostly just building depth, finding role players and contributors, but no big pieces from what you see. So I have it at a B minus. I think they addressed it pretty well, but nothing fantastic.
I agree with this one. B minus, mostly because it's decent value for what they got, but the more you trade back, the less value you're going to get player wise. But you can always find hidden talents later down the board. So who knows? Um, they just kind of really beefed up their depth chart. That's really what they did, and I think that's pretty solid. So
Other than that, Detroit, give them a B
oh,
plus. I
Hmm.
give him a B plus. I think they address need with Blake Miller, um, got good players at those need because I think I know Blake Miller wasn't the top tackle for a lot of people, but I think he will step in at right tackle. You kick Penei Sewell over to left tackle, and I think they're going to be pretty well set. Um,
Yeah.
Solid role players down the board, built some depth. Elaborate, even though they love their kneecaps.
Yeah.
I like the Derek Moore pick in the second. Um, but yeah, again, nothing spectacular, but I think a pretty good draft, especially in those first two rounds. I liked kind of how they addressed it. So
No. I give them a solid B, just because of the what they got like the first three picks. That was really what I was looking at. And then later down the board, their depth chart is pretty good. So getting those was, you know, helpful. So I think they're pretty set for a while. I'm not worried about them. Kind of similar to the Broncos. They just beefed up their depth chart and then addressed the needs that they needed to.
yeah. Moving on to Green Bay, another team that didn't pick in the first. I give them a B plus. Without a first round, Packers still found a way to help improve their defense and address needs. At pick 52, they still managed to land Brandon Cease, who again was kind of one of those fringe first round corners. There were obviously a lot of corners to go, especially in that second round. But like looking at what they addressed, it seems like they really addressed basically just need, and they got kind of the best value for those positions at each pick. So I think they did a fairly good job with kind of the picks that they did manage to come away with in this one. So I give them a B plus. I liked how they addressed it.
Yeah, I was thinking B plus range as well for the Packers. I mean, pretty much explained it for me. They addressed everything that they really needed to. Don't have anything gripes about it. I do like the picks down the board too, especially with Jackson and Burton. That will definitely help later on, especially with the depth. So good job, Packers. I don't like saying that, but good job, Packers.
Looking at Houston, I give him
Hmm.
actually a pretty decent one here. I give him an A minus. They went out for their guy, even though it was just a guard. Uh, was desperately in need. The entire O line was an issue, but especially that interior was desperately needed help. And Rutledge, I think, was one of the more underrated uh prospects. Obviously, interior alignment don't get a lot of value when it comes to mock drafts and prospect boards, but I think he was a great addition. Getting Caden McDonald in the early second was a great pickup and makes that defense scary. I thought it would have been scary if they got him in the first and they managed to get him in the second. You go get a tight end and continued building O line and defense down the board to make that team scary and kind of address what they needed while also again making the team more scary.
Indeed. I kind of gave them a B plus, A minus range. I mean, I like their draft. I think that's pretty good. Obviously with Rutledge and McDonald, those are really solid picks. I'm not worried about that line either side of it for a while. Um, yeah, getting a tight end is pretty smart, especially later down the board. I don't know much about the later picks too much, so that's why I was a little hesitant to give him anything like solidified in an A. But I think it's still a pretty solid draft class.
Looking at Indianapolis, I give them a B.
Hmm.
With what they had to work with, I think they did a pretty good job. CJ Allen at 53, a really good pick. I thought he was going to be gone way sooner. But it was,
Yeah,
you know, him falling all the way to you at your first pick at 53. It's a good it's a good addition. Also AJ Halsey seems to be a very highly regarded player, and so even though again they had kind of later picks, I think they addressed some needs, and I think they did a good job of kind of improving that roster. It, it doesn't make them favorites by any stretch of the imagination,
No.
but I do think it helps them, and I do consider it just overall a decent draft for them.
No. Yeah, I agree. Pretty solid B. Um, yeah, Allen and Halsey are really the two that was sticking out to me. Um, yeah, just getting the depth, especially with Caden Curry down there in the sixth round. I think that's a pretty good pickup there. Um, and yeah, even Dion Burks from Oklahoma. That's pretty solid. I liked seeing a couple film from Burks particularly because Oklahoma had a pretty interesting season last year. They were decent, to get to the playoffs, but stay there not so much. But they get to the playoffs. Um, yeah.
All right, now we gotta address one of the low ends, the Jaguars.
Oh,
I have this as a D plus. As I look at this class more and more, I like it a lot less and less. Manuel Pregnon, by far their best pick, or at least my favorite. No, other than that, no picks really inspire much confidence. If you're a Jags fan, or if you're not a Jags fan, just you gotta hope that the Jags know what they're doing and can prove everyone wrong because it's a puzzling draft and doesn't, from what it looks like, does not look great. So you gotta hope they know more what they're doing than what we think.
yeah. I'm also going to agree with the D plus range because, yeah, Pregnon's the only good one there. No offense to them. It's not that inspiring.
Yeah. Going to the Chiefs.
Mm,
I give them a B plus. You picked good players, not necessarily where I thought they needed to be picked. But I mean, you know, it won't matter if they're the right guys where you got them. Strongly address the defense. Very strongly address the defense. Still left the offense a little out to dry, and you got to wonder how Mahomes is going to be able to do with the receiver room he has. But Spags, surely jumping with joy with some of the key pieces he's added to his defense.
yeah, I'll give him a solid B plus. Like it's pretty decent. I like the Delane pick. Obviously getting Peter Woods is a big help there. Obviously, like you mentioned, the offense not really being addressed as much as I would like it to be. Obviously, Emmett Johnson going to the Chiefs is a love hate thing for me because yay he got drafted, but why to the Chiefs of all places? Um, Other than that, it's a little back and forth between the last few picks, especially with Nussmeier. I assume he's just going to be a death piece for you know quarterback stuff, but I don't know how well he'll turn out in the NFL.
Yeah, that would be interesting to say the least. Looking at the Raiders, I gave him an A. Obviously, the first pick was easy.
Yes.
But you steal like an absolute steal of Jamon McCoy at the beginning of the fourth, and I've done some digging and I've seen like I think enough to know why the fall is there is the concern with some of the injury is if it yeah, there was a surgery and it uses bone tissue, I think. Something basically
Yeah.
along the lines of a bit beyond the fact of just him getting up to speed. If if the injury happens again, there's a chance that it becomes degenerative, or if it becomes an issue again, it could be degenerative and could completely end his career. The only thing I know that's maybe somewhat similar to that is something kind of similar to what happened to Todd Gurley and his career. Obviously, hoping that's not the case, but I still think like for a guy that was projected to potentially be a first round guy, you get him in the fourth. Great value. I love the addition of Mike Washington. You addressed, you got Zune as an interior guy. I loved the pickup of Stukes as well. They got a lot of improvement, especially on that defense. My only thing that keeps this from an A plus is I wished they would have done more to help Mendoza by building a stronger O line, because there's still a few holes there, and getting more wide receiver additions. I don't hate what they had. Plus, if they really do what they have said that they plan to do and stick with a veteran and what is Kirk Cousins this year, then you're more expecting Mendoza next year to be the starter, not as hopefully not this year, as kind of what it sounds like. And then if that's the case, then next year you get some more pieces to help him out. But we'll see if they stick to that.
Yeah. This is a top 5 draft class, in my opinion, this year. Raiders went all out. I really appreciated all the picks that they went with. Obviously, Mendoza. We already know that story. Crawford, Stukes, McCoy, yeah, Washington, and even some of the later guys on the board. Those are pretty solid for what those are. Um, I yeah, I have no gripes about this class. They did a really good job, and I'm looking forward to seeing what happens in the next couple of years.
Might actually get good Raiders football first time in a while. Um, On to the Chargers. I don't know if other people view this the same. I actually really liked their draft. I gave it an A. Very strong emphasis on the trenches, which is very Harbaugh esque, but also was actually a strong need as well. You go out and get Mesidor, which, wasn't probably the top edge, but he's a great win now pick. And the Chargers, made it very clear that's what they're going for here. Uh, Address need heavily, getting 3 interior offensive linemen as long as Burke as a tackle. And then again, outside of Mesidor, getting Barrett, just very strongly addressing those trenches. On top of that, I've seen clips of it. They got McDaniels, the guy that he desperately wanted in Brennan Thompson. Um, it just the question is, because they did address the O line a lot. How is the O line better and how much better? But I
Yeah,
love their approach to it though.
yeah. I don't have them at an A. I think for me, it's a little too high for them. I kind of had them in that B range. I wasn't really sure where. Probably in like just B in general. I mean, I did like the fact that they did address the O line. I really do. I just don't know how well that O line is going to prove because I don't know. We'll see. Because, Harbaugh knows what he's doing. Or at least I think he does. I'm just going to trust his process. I'm not going to throw anybody under the bus. I just need to see it happen before I, give him that high of a grade. I do think getting Mesidor and Slaughter, they're good. They're good picks. It's just later down the board. I just don't know them well enough to make the assumption that is a good draft. So it's solid, but I don't think it's an A.
That's fair. Moving on to the Rams. I
Mm.
I know this is going to be a talking
Oof.
point. Yes, I have him down at a D. No, this grade is not about Ty Simpson. I've looked more and more into the Ty Simpson thing, and yes, Ty Simpson doesn't help them win now, but it is a good plan for the future where, again, maybe they don't win it this year, and it's like, yeah, maybe picking someone else could have helped, but this could prevent them from desperately drafting a quarterback as a need. Say Matthew Stafford retires this year, you're not desperately looking for a quarterback. Now you kind of feel like you have a guy who's had the chance to sit and learn, and you feel like you can throw out there. So it's not Ty Simpson for me that brings this down. What does is the fact that this is a Super Bowl hopeful team, and looking through the draft, they've maybe added one contributor, pending injuries, obviously, and that's at tight end, which is already a deep tight end. They've already had a deep tight end room. They used all three of their tight ends and pretty effectively last year. Yeah, adding a well, now you're up to four. It just their needs are not vast, but they could have used some more pieces to contribute for the next year or two. Again, outside, I think Ty Simpson, sure, that addresses the future fine, but outside of that, everything else kind of just felt like depth or like future pieces. It doesn't feel like they did anything for this year in this draft, except again maybe Max Clare at tight end, and that's where I had more of an issue, not specifically the Ty Simpson one.
For sure. I agree. Um, I actually had them D plus range. Very disappointed in the Rams. I know that they're trying to win this year. They are the favorite, but you couldn't address the things that you were trying to do this offseason. Like, I don't get it. Like, I know you got the corners and everything through the free agency and stuff. Where's all the offensive weapons? Like, sure, you mean you got Claire, but and then CJ Daniels down the board, but I don't I don't in my opinion, those aren't the answers.
Yeah,
You could have done something completely different.
yeah, and I would have liked to see that. I know from what I've heard, they tried moving back at 13 to get more draft capital, and they just couldn't find anything. At least that's what is being reported. So, but again, it's just not being able to find that and just coming away with what they did. I don't feel great about it. Um, makes them doesn't push them forward as much as you would have hoped. But looking at Miami, I give them a B. Another team with a lot of picks in a sort of weird draft. Um, First four picks I really liked. Hayden Proctor, probably a little higher, but I figured he was gonna go higher than he probably was expected to. Just being a huge tackle from Alabama. I I liked the Chris Johnson pick. Jacob Rodriguez, I think, is going to be a great addition. Caleb Douglas is probably going to get a lot of playing time. Was not very high on the Kasmeric pick, but I did like Chris Bell at the end of the third as well. So I think pretty solid wide receiver additions. A very depleted roster gets quite a few contributors here. Um, how strongly they contribute as some more than others. So some I really like, some not great.
Fair. I like Miami's. Give them a B plus. Um, they literally needed everything, and they kind of got everything. So I'm not going to hate them for that. Um, Obviously, you mentioned the Chris Bell pick. I really like that. It's a sneaky good pick. Um, yeah, later down the board, still pretty solid for what it is. I mean, I'm not going to hate on it because obviously they just needed depth pieces, and they got it. Um, with all those picks this year, so I don't blame them for going all out. So yeah, Miami, B plus.
Yeah, absolutely. Um, Minnesota. I gave him a D minus. I think this is my lowest grade. I just what were they doing? Yes, defensive tackle was a need. You lost two big pieces, but you went after Caleb Banks, who probably would have been there in the second. And he has, I think he's had three injuries to that all pertaining to a foot, and it's the same foot as a big. It's just a lot of concerns there. He probably would have been there later. And then they double dip and go Dominic Orange in the third. Golday I'm not super high on. Um, and they had such big needs for secondary for so long. With round one talent on the board, they passed up so much secondary help, waiting until was it the fifth round? Well, I guess they got
Yeah.
Jacoby Thomas in the third, but like such strong need for the secondary, and they focused on so many other positions and a lot of questionable picks for those positions, and at least for me, and I have some major concerns for this team, at least based off of the young talent they've added.
Yeah, yeah, Minnesota really disappointed me. Uh you had every opportunity to address the secondary, especially with the fact that one of uh, your cornerstone secondaries is going to retire soon. Did understand why you didn't address him right away, but here we are. Thielen was there. So was McNeil Warren.
Yep.
Don't understand why they didn't do anything. So D plus really, it's one of my lowest grades out of this year. Just Minnesota should have done better.
Oh, definitely. Moving along to the Patriots. Uh, just keeping it quick. I give them a C. It's just kind of an odd draft for me. Didn't address wide receiver at all. Which yeah, you're projected to get AJ Brown, maybe expecting to get AJ Brown down the line. Um, but even not getting, even if you get him, I still think the wide receiver room is a little questionable and could have used some help. Odd valuation on their prospects, but I hope for some strong contribution from some of the later picks. But no, yeah,
I gave him yeah, I was about to say I gave him a C plus or a C in that kind of range, mostly because what this gave me was that they were really banking on the fact that they were going to get AJ Brown.
oh yeah,
That's what this is what kind of tells me, and that's why I'm a little disappointed because in case if something weird happens, why are we not addressing the wide receiver room? Don't get me wrong, Dobbs is good, but he's not receiver number one. He will be your two or three. He's
it'd probably
good.
be
Don't
two.
get me. He'll be two. It's just I don't trust that Patriots receiver room at all, or at least to step up to the plate unless they have AJ Brown, which is a whole nother thing. And then there's the whole drama this offseason. I don't want to even get to that because New England's a mess right now and they need to figure this out ASAP, or otherwise they're going to be in deep trouble going into the next couple of years and they're going to ruin Drake May. They're going to if they don't address it soon. So,
Yeah. Moving along to the Saints, I gave them a B plus. Receiving room looks quite a bit better. Um,
oh
you
yeah.
got playmakers in the secondary, guard depth, a top five lineman, and Kristen Miller to add to your rotation of linemen. Um, and that's also not mentioning um the addition of Tyree Wilson as just a shot at the edge, um, trading from with the Raiders. Shuck's got a team around him now. It's time to really give him a chance to prove himself. So yeah, I like to give it a B plus.
Solid B plus, A minus. I've leaned towards more of a B plus, mostly because they're good picks for later. Like they are going to get you the depth that you need for later down the road. Saints, this is a brand new team. I'm excited to watch them. Same thing like the Panthers. Like this is the makings of a different team. Um, I'm curious to see how like the receivers do well in this group, especially Brown and Lance. Haven't seen too much of them yet. I'll have to do some more research on them, but I hope they do step up. And then obviously TJ Hall from Iowa. Like I'm going to expect every Iowa player on defense to be phenomenal. So I'm not worried about them. So a solid B plus.
Yeah. And I'm keeping it with a B plus. Looking at the Giants, I also had them at a B plus. Yes, you got great value for Arvel Reese. But what is the plan at edge? And like also what about the rest of your defense? Your edge room looks phenomenal. You have four really good edge pieces. Uh Hood is a good addition. I think that's gonna be great. But otherwise not providing a lot of confidence for the defense outside of that. Um Offense does look quite a bit better with Maui Noah and Malachi Fields, who may have been also a really big steal for them, but could have done a little more there as well. In the end, I think they drafted good players, but quote unquote draft value doesn't equate to wins, and that's kind of where my concern is, especially regarding the Arville Reese pick. Like, yeah, great player, but how much is this? How much is he actually going to help? That's really the question.
I gave him a B, B minus. I I kind of agree with you, mostly because I think they got good players, but not the right players. They didn't get what I was expecting them to get. I don't get me wrong. I think Reese is a good player. Maui Noah, Hood, like you're gonna get good stuff here. Are they the players that they're really looking for? In my opinion, not as much as they should be, especially the whole edge situation. Um, yeah, I'm not quite sure about the Giants yet, but maybe they'll make us eat our words when they start playing this season. I don't know. I'm expecting something completely different this year.
Uh, hope so. Looking at the Jets,
Hmm.
I don't, I don't want to. It's like it's the Jets. I want to give them an F because it's the Jets, but I gave them an A minus. Like you have the big question: is Bailey really the guy off the edge? Was it? Should it have been Reese? That's always going to be the big question. But and I think Bailey is going to be kind of the deciding factor as to how good was this draft, because it's should it have been Reese, or is Bailey really the right guy? Uh, but as long as it was Reese or Bailey, I think that helped their grade a lot. But they did so much more. I loved the addition of Sadiq and Cooper in the first round. I loved them going out and getting pawns. You have the potential to develop Cade Klubnik down the board. Four really strong contributors in the first four picks down the board, role players, depth, potential development guys. I like what they did, and I know it's the Jets, so the chances of them actually turning out great are low because that's just the way the Jets are. But it looks good on paper.
Yeah. I have the Jets actually, arguably, my favorite draft class. I know it's the Jets as well. I
I
get
don't
it.
hate it. I don't
They
hate it.
they are cursed. I don't understand why. I mean, I kind of do, but like all these picks are from solid to game changers. Like that's all it is. Like
Yeah,
even at the very last pick from VJ Payne, like that's a solid player. Like I don't think there's anything on this draft list that makes me go, I don't know about this guy. No, these guys are, for once, the Jets picked every right player. I don't understand it, but they did, in my opinion. So they are arguably my favorite draft class this year.
yeah, I really love again, especially those first four picks.
Hmm.
I love the way they did that. Moving on to Philadelphia.
Philly.
This I think this is my highest grade. I have them at an A plus. stealing Lemon from the Steelers will forever live in history, and I'm so glad that it will, especially in their home city. Uh, but I mean, you're going out getting AJ Brown's replacement, as that seems to be basically in the
The
works.
case.
Um, and then they continue to address need down the board. I wish there were some better prioritization, but they also got Jonathan Grenard during this draft as in a trade with the Vikings, and like I think they addressed everything they needed to,
Hmm.
and the like edge kind of feeling the only thing they didn't really shore up through the draft, they went out and traded for Grenard. So I think they nailed it out of the park. And again, with Howie is just uh, it does so well every year.
Hmm. I actually have this as also one of my top 5 draft classes. Um, Howie knows what he's doing. There's no argument there. All these guys are great. That's all I'm going to say. Like, I'm always going to expect Howie to draft a top 5 class every single year. That's how I roll.
Yeah, very fair. Moving on to Pittsburgh, I give this a C plus. I again, like just mentioned, I'm gonna bring up the Makai Lemon fiasco, and it's like it's such a flop, and it's such a laughable flop. But Yanichor, it was not a bad fallback at all. I think he's gonna have very high upside as a right tackle, and I think they recovered well in the second round, picking up Jeremy Bernard. I think they made some pretty solid picks on the board. Jennings Dunker. Oh, I know a lot of people really love that one. Um, and then there's also the Eli Heidenreich pick that has
Hmm.
all of the sports fans welling up. Obviously questions around the Drew Aller pick, but main points lost go to the Lemon disaster. Otherwise, a pretty honestly not a horrible draft.
So I think it's a combination of two things. One, the lemon situation, but also the fact that we are not 100% sure what's happening at the QB situation. I know I try to keep everything outside of the draft separate, but this draft feels like a fallback on everything because of one pick trying to get one guy to stay. That's kind of how I felt like this was going to happen. And you can thank Philadelphia for doing that because Yanichur, like, really solid. Don't get me wrong. I think everything else is just making up for the fact that we have no idea what's going on offense. That's what I'm getting on this. I don't trust this.
Yeah, that's fair. Moving on to the 49ers. I give them a straight D. Pause. I don't really understand the picks. I think the best pick they made was Kalen Black, and that comes at what already is a pretty deep and strong position for the 49ers. That's kind of the position they're always the strongest is at running back. I see really depth and only depth here, not really a lot of starting potential with a lot of these guys. But it, maybe it's like okay, they addressed positions of need, but the guys they passed on at those positions for the guys they picked just doesn't compute to me. And passing on the guys they did for the guys that they did pick just lowered this so much, and so I went with the D. I just was not a fan.
I had him at a D plus. I have not been a fan of the 49ers this entire draft. It I don't get it. I like the 49ers are a weird team. They're good some years and they're bad some years. Draft or no draft. I don't understand some of the picks. Like I also agree with the Black pick. I just don't trust this draft. I really don't. It's not because I dislike the 49ers. It's because I don't see their angle on this one as much as some people. And I understand the addressing the needs, but you already have a solid like running back room, like you said. Like there's no need to go get a running back right now. You need to focus on other positions. Maybe that's just me being bitter. I don't
I
know.
mean,
Um,
and they
I
did
just
they addressed the positions of need. It's just the
they
names they
did. It's just
added were real
they
head
weren't
scratchers.
wowing. Yeah, they weren't wowing. They were just, huh, okay.
Yeah. Moving along to Seattle though, I gave him a C, and I can't even give him a hard time about it. Just the challenge of being the best. It's the winner's tax. Um, Seattle, they didn't have a lot to work with. They made some solid picks. I don't love the Jadarian Price at the tail end of the first, but at the end of the day, doesn't matter too much to them. You just won the Super Bowl. Be happy about that. Who cares?
Yeah, I agree. Probably a C. Like it was all right. Like you win the Super Bowl, you're expected to not get a crazy draft. It's very rare that you do. So,
Yeah. Buccaneers.
hmm,
I gave him an
this one's
A.
interesting.
I gave him an
Hmm.
A. I'll watch out for Ruben Bain Revenge Tour this year. Absolute steal. I've said that like my favorite for defensive rookie of the year was going to be Caleb Downs. I'd said that during the draft. I still think that that is going to be the case, whether he's on the Cowboys or whoever. Right now, my runner up is going to be Ruben Bain, just based on the fact that he fell all the way to 15, and I, I I think he still is a tail end of the top 10 sort of talent. And now you've put a chip on his shoulder. I think he's going to be a little scary this year. So, great steal for them. Um, added Josiah Trotter a little bit higher than I had him, but make up for it with the Keontae Scott pick. It just seems like they really buffed up the defense, and they were just picking up
Oh yeah.
they were just making improving the defense by adding the best guys available on defense. Just whoever the best guy was there, they went out and got, and I think they did a really good job.
Yeah. I'm gonna agree with you. Not top five, but definitely up there. I really like the draft class out of Tampa Bay. I think it's a pretty solid A minus. I'm curious to see what happens with Bane because of what happened. I want to see him play this year. I'm going to be watching him very carefully because I know for a fact that he's going to be terrorizing offenses. And I think the South just got a little more interesting. So
That's the hope.
the NFC South looks a lot better now. I hope it becomes more competitive.
Well, we've said that for a few years. We'll have to actually see it to believe it. Looking at
No, no.
Tennessee, I give them a B plus. I really do like the Keldrick Falk at the back end of the first, and picking up Anthony Hill back end of the second. Uh, you get linebacker, honestly, linebacker 3 for me in this class, and then Keldrick Falk, just a really young development piece, and he gets to work with Robert Sala. Obviously miss out on Love, but Singleton is Nicholas Singleton that they picked up in the fifth, the potential playmaker in the offense, at least from what I've seen from him at Penn State. Good players from winning teams. For the most part, strong strategy. Tate is going to be the big question mark, but he's going to help out Cam Ward. So, along with Brian Dable there, I think they did a lot to improve the defense as a whole, or improve the team as a whole.
I really like this draft because knowing the head coaches, I think they got all the players that they wanted. Knowing Robert Sala, this Titans team can end up being really good. I'm excited to see that. Obviously, we haven't seen anybody play it. It's a new coaching staff, everything else. But the idea is really good. I really hate saying this, but the Nicholas Singleton pick, because we played against him, like Nebraska played against Penn State, just hearing him running up and down the field up against us, like it was like, well, he's going to go like pretty far in the draft, I'd hope. Sure, it's 5th round, but he's a really good player. I think that's a steal for them. Yeah, I have no complaints on this draft.
There. And finally, we get to the Commanders. I gave them a B plus. It's not a big draft. They had a smaller draft with only 6 picks.
Yeah.
But Sonny Styles at 7, absolute steal. Katron Allen was also a really good piece in that Penn State backfield, like the Nicholas Singleton aforementioned running back. And running back was a huge position of need, and they got him all the way down in the 6th round. And he's, again, potentially a very strong contributor day one. You get wide receiver piece with Antonio Williams. I like what they did. I like the pieces they got, and they addressed need about as expected. I just the added some good pieces. Again, it wasn't big. It wasn't a lot of pieces, but the guys they got, I am pretty high on, and I think this is putting Washington in the right direction going forward, and kind of making this team younger and better for the future.
Yep. I give them a solid B plus. For the limited picks they have, they did all the things that I expected them to do, and they did it pretty well. I am going to say this once again. Any Penn State running back from this last year, that's a solid pick. I really like those guys. Obviously, with Williams and Styles, those are really great additions to the team. I expect them to be playing for a long time, hopefully with the Commanders, but obviously we can't predict the future all the time. But they will get them up to speed again, I would really hope. So, yeah, B plus.
All right, and that rounds out our draft grades for 2026 NFL draft. It was quite a pretty surprising draft. I think there was a lot of unexpected things that happened. Like I mentioned, like our best draft, or our best mock draft, we had 4 correct, which we actually did 3 separate times. But like, wildly enough, a lot of things did actually make some sense. But it was just so hard to predict where so many of these teams would go. And some of these teams, I think they did a great job of navigating the talent in front of them. Some teams not so much. That happens pretty much every year, though. So the draft has come and gone. We've made our predictions. We've watched it happen. Now we've recapped it. And now we get to the bleak parts of the offseason, where probably expect a post-draft power rankings, and get into our creative bag to find some fun stuff for you to watch for the rest of the summer until football comes back. So, thank you so much for watching. Obviously, this has been the 2026 NFL Draft recap and grading. Appreciate everyone for stopping by, and we look forward to seeing you in the next one.
See ya.
Bye.